everybody. This is George K with ActionCOACH, and we've got another spotlight interview for you today. We've got Martin Letendre, who is the President of Ethica CRO. Martin, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Martin, tell us your role at the company and a little bit about what Ethica does.
So perfect. So my role, I'm President of Ethica CRO. Ethica is a full contract research organization. It differentiates itself by offering something that no other CRO offers, which is a research participant focused platform, so a risk management platform, but focused on protecting the rights and welfare of research participants.
Wow.
Our focus is also due to our history in medical aesthetics. We've developed a unique niche. So since 2021, we've decided to focus primarily our services in the field of medical aesthetics. So anything from neuromodulators, dermal fillers, skincare, lasers. This is the research we do.
Huge field. So how long have you been with the company, Martin?
So I joined the company almost at its inception. I joined the company in 2003. I had various roles in the company. I joined first as Director of Ethics and Government Affairs. So my role was to oversee the ethical conduct of the research conducted at Ethica, helping with quality assurance, developing SOPs, anything related to relationship with Health Canada and the FDA. So that was my role first.
So you saw a lot of growth in the company. How big was the company when you joined the company?
When I joined the company, I think we were about 8 or 9 employees.
And now where are you?
So now we are Ethica CRO. We are like with our contractual CRAs in the US. Yeah, we're a little bit over 40.
Wow. And I understand that Ethica belongs to a team of companies. There's Veritas as well, correct?
That's correct. So I'm as well the president of Veritas IRB. So Veritas offers complementary services to Ethica CRO. So it offers ethics review services for clinics, any research organization that don't have their own research ethics board.
Wow. So you guys really staked out that space, that ethical space.
Our goal was really to offer, so the companies have 2 different stories, but the goal has always been to promote the ethical conduct of research. And our objective is really to show the industry that you can develop better product, safer product by putting the research participant at the center of everything that you do.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, I understand that in the pharma world in general, there's a kind of a love-hate relationship with the public, in the sense that the public loves the products, but there's this sense that the companies that make them may not always be making decisions that are in the best interest of the patient, if you know what I mean. And I love that, that there's companies like yours out there trying to be, you know, a protector of that.
And that's why Ethica was founded. Ethica was founded in 2002 by Janice Parenti. When Janice founded Ethica, she had another CRO before, and she was confronted with that push to go faster, cheaper, and at some point so they were 2 partners, and there was a conflict over the protection of research participants and the ethical conduct of research. And they decided to part ways, and she founded Ethica. So it's in the name. But that was that goal, that to show the industry that essentially you can do great research and put great products on the market by doing things the right way.
It's interesting. I've read so many articles and books over the years that I've been doing this work, and this idea of doing good and doing well seems to always be at odds, with each other. But when we do these longitudinal studies of companies, and I can hear that it's the same in the medical field.
Yeah.
If you focus on doing good, the doing well follows itself.
Correct. And you see it with, pharma has a lot of history of products that go on the market and get pulled back from the market because of safety issues.
Right.
And then you realize that there was data, there were signals when you were conducting research that
You
there
mean
were
smoking wasn't always safe? Okay, well, we won't go there.
No, that's fine.
Let's talk about the journey, because the point of the Spotlight interview is to talk about the journey. So you've had explosive growth. You've been close to the founder almost since the beginning.
Yeah.
So what were some of the growing pains? I mean, you've already told us about how there was this the split in principles, split in vision, split in values between the founder and her former partners. Talk to us about how important having clear vision, clear mission, clear values is in an organization, especially when it's getting started.
That's a good question. I cannot tell you as much when you're getting started because I joined in as an employee. I did not join in. I became part of the ownership group later in the history of the company. So, but I can tell you that in the journey of the company has can have several lives,
Like steps almost.
it has several steps. It will have ups and downs and so on. And I think that through that journey, you can either decide to do like anyone else or do something different and listen to your voice. And I think it's important. I think that you read in books, for example, that companies go through infancy and then adolescence, and then they get some maturity. I think that's what we experienced at Ethica. They were the companies was successful from the get-go, because many of the companies that were working with the prior company that Janice had co-founded joined her in the Ethica project and believed in what she was trying to build. So there was immediate growth with which Ethica had to deal with. But there are things that are sometimes outside of the control, especially in pharma. Mergers and acquisitions, and all of a sudden, the client you used to have is part of a larger conglomerate, and then
they use a CRO. They've been using the
CRO is
CRO
using
forever.
another CRO. So there are ups and downs and so on. I think what's important is really to look into who you are as a company and what's your purpose. And that was an exercise I had to do when I was appointed president of Ethica. One of the first things I did was to sit down with the managing director of the company and say, well, okay, let's look at the company. And I asked him, what do you like to do? And he said, well, because he's also our director of clinical and scientific affairs. And his answer was, you know what? Medical aesthetics research resonates with me. We have a story to tell. We have experience. It would be great if we would be doing more aesthetic research. And I said, great, let's focus there. And that helped us. And I think that we were able to articulate it around our mission of well-being, and self-confidence, and basically ensuring that the rights and welfare of research participants are well protected.
So I love the mission. I think the mission is amazing. With regards to managing the growth, I
Yeah.
get that you said that the company was fairly successful right from the start because of
Yeah.
the prior experience. Of course, the existing customers agreed with the vision that
Yeah.
Ms. Pariente had, and so that made it easier for them to make the switch or to join
Mhm.
Ethica. And I think that that's important for younger entrepreneurs to understand that your mission is tied to your marketing. I mean,
Yes.
the two things go hand in hand. If you have a good mission, you also have a good marketing message. So I think that that's evident in the fact that the clients were willing to follow her. So that's great. But in your growth, how were you able? Because I know it's a competitive field. I know that
Mhm.
the experts involved are in high demand. So how were you able to attract professionals to come and work with a relatively small company? I mean, even though you were
Yeah.
successful, I know the CRO business a little bit, and it's a huge field.
Yeah. Um, in the early years of Ethica, so and actually that was another part of the mission of Ethica, is that the people that work at Ethica is crucial to the company. It's not, it is a family business without being a family business, in the sense that we have families that work at Ethica. We have husband and wife that work at Ethica. But the family values were transferred into the companies, in terms of
Mm,
when we used to have an office, because we can talk about our transition to becoming a virtual company. Um, but family was always important. You could bring your kid at home, like at work. We had a specific room. If you had like a problem with daycare not showing up, or everything, we had, like, you could bring your kid at work. You could bring your pet at work. Um,
Soon it'll be you can bring your parents to work.
True, but it was always there. We had a bank of personal hours for employees, that they don't have to worry about doing extra time, because now they have to go get their car fixed, or take care of their pet. So there was always care for the employees,
Mm,
which led to the fact that we have employees that, like, the key people at Ethica have been with the companies for over 10 years. We have a very low turnover, and I think because we've established a trust relationship with the employees, and
mm.
that's fundamental, because
And
it,
I love that you said that it's fundamental because it doesn't matter what you do. You could be a
yeah.
plumbing company, you could be a telecommunications company. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter. That is what people,
Yeah.
that's what resonates with people, the trust that they have between the employer and the employees. I love a post that you shared about culture and how culture is really the bedrock of your company, and it's more than just something on your website. It's more than something that's hanging on a wall in the boardroom. Talk to us about how Ethica, and I guess Veritas as well, has worked culture really into the company. I mean, some of the things you've told us is important. They're kind of like things that you would find in the HR manual, but in that
Correct.
post, it was more about your actions. It was more about how you live the culture. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So again, people has always, like, we are a people company, and it's not cliche, like, in terms of what we have done over the years, and with people who have stuck, like, our team that has stuck with us over the years. But uh, in the way that we've treated employees, but also we've tried to put into the company. So what we're seeing in terms of we have ethical principles that govern research,
Mm-hmm.
and we decided to adopt principles for our company, and we took the time to reflect that. So I have training in philosophy, and we've kind of adapted an approach, and looked into what are the principles that are important to us at Ethica, and
Hmm.
they are articulated in our employee handbook. We call it our journey guide, and we explain very clearly this is how we're going to treat you at Ethica from your onboarding, and we have a clear onboarding process that is very detailed. To what are your first 2 years, and we explain, like, your first 2 years is really, we're assessing, is it a good fit? We will be training you, we will be accompanying you through the process. And after 2 years, it is a fundamental moment for employees at Ethica. You become what we call a keeper.
Wow.
And that means that essentially we have, and even before, but employees who are keepers, I mean, we have a career path for them. And our goal is to make sure that they stay with the company as long as possible, and they become part of the growth of the company and its future.
That's amazing. I love the fact that you kind of upfront make a commitment for 2 years with
Yeah.
the new employee. That is, I can only imagine how inspiring that is for an employee to say, wow, I want to achieve that 2 year, position, that 2 year status, the keeper status. I love that. I think that's great. I also noticed that there was something about the walking the talk. So I think
Yeah.
that, even, in the day-to-day interactions, I mean, if there's maybe a conflict between employees or between employees and management, that there are, I would say, rituals or processes that everyone understands need to be adhered to or respected to
Yeah.
keep everything moving in the right direction.
So that that's fundamental, like in terms of, for us, courage is very important. It's one of it's part of our integrity virtue that we have in our journey guide. If you have integrity, like, in order to have integrity, you cannot, in order to walk the talk, you cannot start punishing someone for committing a mistake, because then you will have a culture of hiding mistakes. So for us,
Mm-hmm.
we celebrate mistakes. We look at, celebrate mistakes is a big word, but we take it as a learning opportunity. We have clear standard operating procedures to deal with that and learn from it. For us, we're a highly regulated industry. When a client comes in and audit us, we don't see this as a burden. We're seeing it as a learning opportunity. It's
Right.
free, and especially as a small business, it's free consulting. For us,
Yeah, that's a
it,
great way of looking at it.
and this is our approach. We're very humble with, when it comes to our conduct. We're not perfect. We're there to learn. We will, it is an industry that has a lot of uncertainty, and therefore we need to embrace that.
Yeah.
Um,
If you've got a
so
good team, if you have a good team that is aligned really well,
yes.
regardless of how the company needs to pivot, the team will respond accordingly. The team will back you up. So that's a great thing. I know that some people watching this, that might be a smaller enterprise, might say, "Oh, that's great for them. They're a big company. They got a lot of money. Look at all those employees." But me, I'm a 3, 4, 5 man show. I mean, how does this work for me? What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, you talked about securing talent at the beginning as a small business. Um, it is a challenge. So I'm saying I'm taking a lot of credit for a lot of the work Janice did, but the same way, Janice's approach was to put a lot of trust in people that had a lot potential.
Hmm.
Was able to see potential. So we hired, and by necessity, but also we looked in peoples who have obviously good training, but not necessarily great experience, but had a lot of potential. And we took the time to invest in mentoring them. And these employees are the ones who are right now directors
Yeah.
at the company.
Yeah.
But they all started as an entry-level employee, and they were trained throughout the process, and they had the time to become leaders in the company.
Yeah. I think that's so important. I think a lot of times, of course, it depends. If you've got a small business and your goal is to stay small,
Yeah.
yeah, you're probably going to have some challenges there. But if your goal is to build a big business, build a business that of meaning, then that is the only way to go, especially I would imagine in your field. And I don't think it's just your field. You know how when you hire people that have a big background, they also have a lot of baggage. They
Yeah.
come with a lot of baggage. And a lot of times you've got to bring them into your culture and they have to unlearn the old ways. They have to unlearn the old habits, and that's a challenge. There's a lot of risk associated with that. And if you can have the mindset of taking somebody that's kind of formless, that doesn't have a lot of baggage, and then you can build them up in a way that suits your vision, there's a lot of advantages to that.
There are huge advantages. Our best employees are the ones that came in with, you know, I practice martial arts. I'll take the quote from Bruce Lee. But if you can empty someone who can empty their cup and are willing to learn, these are the best people you can hire. And it's important to look into this when you do your interview process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That willingness
definitely.
to learn is fundamental.
And I love the fact that you also said that you have a process and you also use the word detailed process.
Yes.
I think that regardless of how big or small your company is, that process, again, your own words, forces you to audit your systems. You have to take a good hard look at what you're doing. And regardless of how big or small your company is, you benefit from that reflection.
Yeah, and you should always review your process. It's not
Mm,
because you have something that is good. So I'll talk about onboarding. So our onboarding process lasts about like 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the position, before you start doing on-the-job training and you're being mentored by a more senior employee. But you're assigned an onboarding ambassador. So we have our company is now bigger, but we have the liberty to do that. But you can do this in a small employee as well. That you have a single point of
have a
contact.
buddy system.
You have
Yeah.
a buddy system that every day, at the end of the day, was how is it? How is it going? Especially in the context of being a remote company,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that the person's giving you your training is actually going to show up on time if that person is not there, so that your employee doesn't feel abandoned or alone
Mm-hmm.
in the onboarding process. It's really important. But at the end of the 2 weeks onboarding process, and we have like a training agenda, it's very clear, the expectations are there. But at the end of the onboarding process, there's a debrief with the employee in terms of what did you like from the onboarding process? What you didn't like? What could we improve for the next onboarding process, for the next employee? And we're always in a mode of being better.
Mm.
So that's fundamental.
Yeah. And okay, so I'll play devil's advocate one more time
Yeah.
and say, oh my God, that sounds so time consuming. Don't you have stuff that you got to take care of? Isn't, like, I don't have time to do all this stuff. You're going to get that pushback, right?
Yeah. If you don't have the time to invest in your people, I again, it's your biggest asset. I like don't like and we realize that, and one of the best decisions that we take, and that's one thing of entrepreneurship, is that you seek opportunity and challenges. Um, the COVID pandemic being one.
Mm,
We could have decided to continue with our existing process or look at the pandemic and say this is an opportunity for transformation.
yeah.
And that's what we saw. We saw that we're in the consulting business, um, everybody has an office at home. Communication and technology completely exploded during the pandemic. And when there was downtime, rather than sending employees back or reducing their hours, we basically created a committee and say, how can we make Ethica 2.0
Wow.
as a virtual company? Can it work? And we're very scientific because in our team. So we started doing our research, going through books of are
What are
there
the best practices?
are there virtual companies? Does it exist? So we follow the model of Basecamp. So Josh Freed, who wrote the book Remote,
Yep.
and we followed a lot of this model and applied it to Ethica.
That's another great point. I'm glad you brought that up. We talk at ActionCOACH, that leaders are readers. I love the fact that you reflect on the idea that you don't have to create it from scratch. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Go look at other people that have done it and copy them. And it's a great way of saving time and money and not having to work on building a roadmap, just work on executing the roadmap.
Yeah, I think there's balance between, you can read a lot, and I did read a lot because as I mentioned, I became president of Ethica in 2018. I always saw myself, even though both my parents were entrepreneurs. I've worked in the family business from age 12 to 25. I always saw myself as a fantastic second. I'm great support. I'm reliable. This is how I had created myself, my persona. This is where I felt very comfortable. I was asked to be put in the leadership role when Janice decided to create and found two nonprofit organizations dedicated to promoting excellence in research in Canada. So human
What
research.
a big surprise.
Exactly. So an accrediting body called Human Research Accreditation Canada and a standards developing organization called Human Research Standards Organization. So now I'm the great second who's put in number one. And it's cliche, but I was suffering from the imposter syndrome for at least 3 years. And during that time, I did a lot of reading. There were some good books. There were some
Not
bad
so
ones.
good books.
But the important is at some point you need to create a roadmap and make and decide what you're adopting and put it into practice. Like you cannot
you have to put your stamp on it.
You have to put your stamp on it, and you have to stop reading, or at least implement it.
Oh, I see what your point. Yeah. It can't always stay theory. You have to put it into practice.
Yes, because speaking with people, sometimes you see they read a lot, but then you go, where is it in your business? Like, why I'm not seeing this? Like you said you've read all these books. I can tell you what books we've applied at our company.
Yeah.
Remote was one of them. It starts with why from Simon Sinek is one of them, obviously with our mission, and we really put it forward. For hiring, Top Grading is an excellent book.
Top Grading?
Top Grading.
I don't know that one. I'm going to check it out.
It's a fantastic book on how to hire. And again, it allows you to go against the current, and especially in our industry where competition is fierce for talent. There is and I'm not criticizing recruitment agencies, but a lot of companies are seeking the help of recruitment agencies. They are very good. There are some very good ones who take the time to know about your company, but no one knows your company better than you.
Nope.
And if you're going to integrate people into your team, you need to make sure that you're bringing the right people, and you should invest a lot of time in the hiring process.
Yeah.
And top grading is, if someone think that are concerned about spending time in people, top grading is not for them.
Okay, I get it. Did
It's
you
a
read Reed Hastings' book, Netflix Rules?
No, I have not.
You'd probably love it.
Okay.
You'd probably love it. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities between what you've been talking about and what they've been practicing, or at least trying to practice at Netflix. You might enjoy that book.
Okay.
So, Martin, as we wrap up, I'd like to thank you. Amazing, great interview. I love the points that you helped to bring to light, and I think they're universal. I think that all the lessons apply to bigger organizations and small organizations. I get the sense that you have a coaching mentality going on at Ethica. As we wrap up, talk to us a little bit about what that looks like day to day at Ethica. I mean, we got the onboarding thing in the 2 years, but I think regardless of whether you're a keeper or you're starting out, I think that coaching ethos is there.
Yeah, so that's still in development at Ethica. So we're at the phase because we did experience a rapid growth in 2022, 2023, and the company doubled in size in 2023.
Wow.
Which means that a lot of the people who were in the company were placed into director roles. And now what we've created essentially is that we have leadership team meetings where we're not looking at the company, but we're looking at ourselves. How should we lead? How do we need? Because now the next step is bringing the other layer of leaders, and who should we mentor? How can we bring them? And again, that takes time.
Yeah,
Takes
it
a
does.
lot of time because these are not billable hours. But you need to take that time, otherwise your growth, you won't be able to support your growth. You
Yeah.
need everybody to
You were
buy.
talking about those stages, and this is one of those stages that if you don't build a strong enough foundation, it won't support the next level.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it's important to look into that and to plan it.
I love the thoughtfulness behind what you're doing at Ethica. It sounds like you're putting a lot of thought and careful thought, not just analyzing the numbers and the profit margin and the data, but really the thoughtfulness in terms of what is this going to look like, what is this going to feel like, how are the people going to respond to these changes and to these decisions, and I think that's crucial.
Yeah, and seeking, I think there are moments where you need to look into seeking outside help as well in terms of the coaching and especially when you're building leaders. You can do things yourself, and I think it's really important. It should be always finding your own way.
That's what good coaching is supposed to be about.
But coaching is important in that way, and getting there are moments where you have to look for outside help. We've done it, for example, in marketing. We have a great marketing consultant, even though we do a lot of our marketing now internally, but it's the same thing now for our team of leaders.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a certain humility attached to saying, like, I'm good at this, but I could use help on that. And that's great. We all need to do that. Well, listen, Martin, thank you so much. I think we could have a whole other discussion about the whole, breaking up the in-person business and turning into a virtual company. I think there's a ton of dynamics that can be explored there. Perhaps we can make that our next discussion.
Absolutely. It'll be a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and wish you, Ethica and Veritas, all the success in the world.
Thank you so much.